I've tested and reviewed quite a number of LPVOs, and the most common complaint I hear about them is the distortion people see at 1 power, especially with budget LPVOs. They often call it a fisheye effect, though technically that's not the correct term. But there's another odd issue I have with some LPVOs and not others. This is an example of what I'm talking about. Do you see it? You don't? Well, let me explain. Here is an example of a less than perfect LPVO at 1 power. You can see a distinct curvature, a distortion of the image inside of the scope compared to the real world. And a lot of shooters, reviewers, and YouTubers often call this a fisheye effect. But technically, fisheye is the distortion from an ultra-wide lens. This is what a real fisheye effect looks like from a fisheye lens. If you're a fan of music and album covers of just about any genre, but especially of 90s hip-hop, you're very familiar with a real fisheye effect. And these are clips from a really nice video essay from Vox on the fisheye lens and pop music, which I'll include a link to in this video's description, but I digress. Back to distortions in LPVOs, one of the most common causes of this is because people don't properly adjust the diopter, often called the fast focus, on their scope. You want to adjust the diopter so that objects inside of the scope appear accurate to your magnification and appear sharp, not blurry to your eye. Despite adjusting your diopter, you may still see some strangeness. Here we have a Vortex Razor HD Gen 3, and if you notice, the cars inside of the scope look smaller than they do in the real world. And that's because this scope was designed to have a wider than normal field of view at 1 power. Whereas most other LPVOs, like this Nightforce ATACR, give you a narrower field of view, but it does appear flatter and more accurate to size at 1 power. So here's the issue I wanted to bring up, or maybe it's not really an issue, it's more of a side effect that I was noticing when I was testing the Primary Arms SLX, which is a pretty decent scope for the price, by the way. It's got a nice, clean, flat image. But I noticed some of the objects inside of the scope look slightly shifted from where they are in the real world. Here we have that same scope set at 1 power, and I have adjusted the diopter, but I have not touched the turrets. They are at factory 0. We're looking at a telephone pole about 20-25 yards away, and you can see in the left photo it doesn't line up. But when I rotated that scope almost upside down, it does line up, and I haven't changed the diopter, the turrets, or anything. Was this scope somehow accidentally assembled upside down? Is that even possible? What's going on here? So I sent it back to Primary Arms, and to their credit, great customer service, by the way, they sent me a replacement, and that replacement was aligned. It looked like it should. But they also checked the scope that I sent back, and they said that there was nothing mechanically wrong with it. So what exactly happened here? I don't know. Since then, I've kept my eye out for this image shift issue in all the LPVOs that I test, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it doesn't seem to matter if it's a cheap LPVO or an expensive one. Case in point, I was at SHOT Show earlier this year, and I stopped by the Trijicon booth, and this is no dig on Trijicon because they have a well-earned reputation for making some of the better LPVOs out there in terms of durability, reliability, and technology. This is their new Credo LPVO, and earlier I asked their sales rep to adjust the diopters and make sure everything was functioning properly. And you can see it here, that loophole sign does not line up inside of the scope. And this is the LPVO set at 1 power. Now check this out. I'm going to rotate the LPVO scope tube in my hand about 90 degrees to see if it gets better. And no, not quite, but I'm going to rotate it a little bit more than 90 degrees and see if that changes anything. And it's a little challenging aligning this with a camera, but yes, it's not perfect, but it looks a whole lot better. And as you can see, I've rotated the scope 180. It's upside down, and it looks better than it does right side up. So I asked the folks at the Trijicon booth what was going on with the scope, and they just looked at me kind of sus, like I was trying to trap them or do a gotcha video or something like that. But honestly, they acted like they didn't know. And just to make sure that we're seeing what we're seeing, I'm going to rotate the scope right side up, and yeah, it's back to being misaligned again. So what's going on here? I don't know. The guys at Trijicon didn't know. So I thought I would ask somebody who might. So I got a hold of my friend, the Dark Lord of Optics, and you can find a link to his channel in this video's description. But if you want to learn more about scopes, you will not find a more authoritative source because he actually designs scopes and lenses for optical companies in real life. What is this effect that I'm seeing when I'm rotating? And bear in mind, I did not adjust the reticle on this. This is straight out of the box and factory zero, assuming it's, it's correctly centered in the factory. I don't know, but I didn't.
It usually isn't. They usually center it mechanically, but it doesn't mean it's centered optically.
Okay.
Right. So it's very hard for me to say for sure, again, like looking at the images and I wasn't there. What is the most likely option is that the adjustments were not fully centered. And that's why you're seeing this stuff. If the adjustments are fully centered optically, then rotationally it should be perfectly symmetric. It's clearly not. It is likely either because the adjustments are not centered. It's also possible when they assembled it, the piece of the lens alignment is not perfect. It's okay. Everybody tries to make a perfect lens alignment, but there may be one company that truly gets it right every time, and their scopes cost $6,000. But they made it their purpose to make the best, not only the best design scope, but the best build scope.
That when I was at SHOT Show at the Trijicon booth, where and granted, I was holding both the camera and the LPVO at the same time, but it was something that I just noticed when I was looking through it.
So you have shifting perspectives.
Right, but it certainly looked much more in alignment when it was upside down.
Again, I wasn't there, right? So probably X, Y, probably window elevation turret adjustments are doing something funky. The exit pupil is slightly offset, and the way the camera is positioned behind the scope makes it look better. One rotation with the other, right? So if the adjustments are not centered when you rotate this, the exit pupil also makes this precession thingy. So where your camera is to see the image is going to be a different spot. Since I wasn't there.
Well, next time, next SHOT Show, I will find you and I will drag you to. And I have to find
if you really want to understand this next SHOT Show, make the time, go through a couple optics booths together. I'll walk you through everything I'm looking for.
Well, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video, and just as a reminder, don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button and notification bell buttons if you're not already subscribed to the channel. It just takes a second, it's absolutely free, so thanks for taking a moment to press those buttons before this video ends. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Ilya, Dark Lord of Optics, for answering my questions about LPVOs. And one of the things he mentioned really stuck with me was that just because it's a brand new scope and I get it straight out of the box and it says 0 on the turrets doesn't necessarily mean that it is optically zeroed. Because as we know, most new scopes nowadays come with resettable turrets. So now, no matter what the position of the glass elements are or the reticle, well, the turrets could have been set to 0. So yeah, also with etched glass reticles or first focal plane reticles, this is one, by the way, this is a Discovery Optics EDAR LPVO, which has a first focal plane etched glass reticle, and also one of the few LPVOs that has a parallax focus, interestingly enough. If you'd like to see the video review of this, you can find a link to that in the video description, but I digress. My point is, if you have an etched glass reticle, well, as the name implies, the reticle is laser etched onto the glass. So if you want to shift or change the position of your crosshairs with the turrets, you're not just moving those lines, you're moving the entire glass element, and you're shifting it over, and that is what was causing the image shift. Why sometimes when I was picking up an LPVO at 1 power, objects inside of the scope seem shifted to where they are in the real world. So apologies to Primary Arms and Trijicon for wrongly assuming that there was something particularly wrong with their sample of their optic. Yeah, now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
And maybe you already knew about this image shift issue, and you're like, duh. Or maybe you never even noticed it before until I pointed it out to you. Maybe it's actually occurring with your LPVOs. Let me know. Leave me a comment and tell me whichever is the case. But if you'd like to learn more about optics in general, I encourage you to check out Dark Lord of Optics' website and his live stream. And you can find a link to that in my full written review at moondogindustries.com, and you'll find links in the video description. So thanks for taking a moment to check out those links, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video. God bless. Moondog Out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.